Hello friends, my name is Leigh and I create videos about photography as an art and as a lifestyle. Today we are talking about a camera that is a good all-arounder and that is an easy camera to like whether you are a beginner or more advanced. The Nikon Z5II. In the current Z lineup, the Z5II is the lowest cost full-frame body, and while it has pared down specifications from the Z6III and the Z7II and of course the Z8 and Z9, the Z5II is still a highly capable body. It is well equipped for a variety of photography genres. I envision that a lot of Z5II owners will be those that simply like photography and like to have a solid setup to capture the world around them. And that's how I used this camera. A little bit of hiking, some travel, a few portraits, and even some wildlife. The camera did great. Let's take a look. The first thing I did was take the camera out with me with the 24 to 120mm f4 lens for a hike. I arrived at a local regional park probably 30 minutes prior to sunrise, but it was rainy and cloudy, so it stayed pretty dark for quite a while. That was a great way for me to test out a couple of things: the in-body image stabilization and the high ISO capabilities. I needed both to capture these photos handheld while it was so dim. You can see in most of these photos that the shutter speeds were pretty slow for the focal lengths I was shooting, and I still had to crank up the ISO sensitivity. But the photos look great. Let's zoom in a little bit and consider image quality at the camera's highest native ISO sensitivity, 64,000. We certainly see some noise in the sky, but that's to be expected. We're still able to see details in the mountains, and the colors are still wonderfully vibrant. And then this image at ISO 10,000, it is noticeably less noisy. And then this image at ISO 2500 doesn't have any noticeable grain. And back to the in-body image stabilization, I didn't experience any blur in the images. The Z5II's IBIS can achieve up to 7.5 stops of stabilization, so I was well within its limits. Even this photo, which was captured at 120mm at 1/30th of a second. This is a good time to mention the viewfinder. My only sort of complaint about the original Z5 was that the viewfinder wasn't up to par with the Z line. And that has been improved on this camera. So even in the dark conditions I was in, I could see clearly through the viewfinder. And speaking of usability, next, Raymond took the Z5II to the Grand Canyon. I was there using the Z5II and a wide-angle prime lens for another video, which has already been published, and I'll link to it in the description. Raymond is fluent in Nikon terminology, so he picked up this camera with no problem. We should talk about usability for a moment here. Nikon cameras on the whole are comfortable to hold, they are user-friendly, and the button and dial placement simply makes sense. The Z5II is no exception here. If you have used a Nikon camera before, you'll be familiar with everything here. If you are new to the system, there are a lot of menu options on all modern cameras. The camera manual for this camera has explanations for everything. But if you'd be interested in a menu walkthrough video from me where I discuss what each menu item means, let me know in the comments and I can put that together. The one thing Raymond mentioned in his use of the camera was that if we owned the camera, he would want to put a base plate on it like we have for our Z7 here to give it just a tiny bit more to hold on to at the bottom of the body. That's totally personal preference. If it interests you, I will link to one of these base plates in the description. The trip to the Grand Canyon was a good chance to look at the dynamic range of the images coming out of this camera. This was the first image that Raymond captured. It was a bright afternoon and the sky is overexposed in the original raw image, but we can bring down the exposure to recover the highlights. There's also a dark area in the left corner, and we can brighten exposure to bring out the details in the shadows. Bringing it all together using some masking in Lightroom Classic, we can achieve a balanced image, which is more like what we actually saw with our eyeballs standing in front of the canyon. I didn't need to edit all of the images that much, but this day with a lot of sun, clouds, and shadows in the canyon, you can see the image quality overall. We even did a couple of time lapses at the end of the evening, showing the clouds in the sky and the late afternoon shadows moving over the walls of the canyon. and then the smoke from the massive wildfire at the North Rim, along with the sunset. After checking out the low light capabilities on a morning hike in the desert and exercising the dynamic range on a day trip to the Grand Canyon, I decided to take the Z5II out to a riparian area for wildlife photography on a very hot 111-degree afternoon. The camera did fine in the heat, by the way. I was using the 70-200 millimeter f2.8 with the 2x teleconverter, giving me 400 millimeters at f5.6. The 24 megapixel sensor gave me plenty of room to crop the images. The Z5II can shoot at up to 30 frames per second with some limitations, but I was set to shoot at 7.8 frames per second in RAW. This is equipped with several types of autofocus detection and tracking, including people, dogs, cats, birds, and vehicles, along with dedicated modes for birds and airplanes. I used continuous autofocus with bird detection and 3D tracking. And that was a big help because the camera was very quick to detect the birds and stay locked onto them. So as long as I pointed the camera at the bird, the camera took care of autofocus. And the Z5II still picked up subjects like bunnies, even though I was in bird mode. That being said, while all of the advanced technical features are really helpful, you still need to get yourself to the right place at the right time. You will still need to practice using your camera so you know which settings to use. I didn't have a fast enough shutter speed during this burst of bunny photos. She's in focus and I saw the camera tracking her as she hopped, but my shutter speed was not fast enough to make sure the bunny's action was frozen. It happens. The Z5II did everything that I wanted it to for this outing. The one feature I did not use was pre-release capture. That is where the camera starts capturing photos prior to your shutter release button being completely pressed. It's a great option for wildlife photography. Last, I captured a few portraits of myself here in the studio so that I could show you what the eye detection looks like. I used continuous autofocus, auto area, and human eye detection. You can see how the camera does a phenomenal job of sticking to my eyeball. Similar to wildlife photography, those extra technical features are wonderful and can be super helpful, but of course, these portraits wouldn't have been possible without my knowledge of photography, like lighting. I do have some free complete courses on my channel. I will link to them in the description of this video. I made sure to use the Z5II for things that a general photographer might, because like I said at the beginning of this video, this camera is a fantastic choice for a lot of people. I had zero complaints. I'm really wondering how many Nikon DSLR users are going to take the leap to the mirrorless Z line with this Z5II. Of course, if you're looking for a camera with more megapixels, you have options in the Z7II, the Z8, the Z9. If you want something really fast, the Z8 and Z9. If you want enhanced video features, the Z6III is another choice. And I don't want to forget the Z5II. It is an APS-C camera, but if you want a smaller and lighter weight kit, something less expensive overall, or you simply don't feel that you need a full frame body, I will link to my video about the Z5II in the description of this video. It's a great little body. In fact, I will link to a playlist with most of my videos on Nikon Z bodies and lenses in the description. Before I let you go though, let me know what you think of the Z system in the comments, especially those of you that are using Nikon DSLRs. Are you enticed by the Z system now that it is so built out? I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Please do like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have several videos coming up using Nikon OM system. I have some travel coming up. Actually, I am traveling on the day that this video gets published. I have been posting on Instagram throughout the trip, so make sure you're following me over there too. Thank you for watching.